Today, I would like to begin talking a little bit more about spirituality and overcoming suffering. I believe it is something incredibly important, especially for so many who are currently suffering and experiencing challenges in that arena in their life. I would like to attempt to get closer to being of service and sharing my experiences and thoughts with you and with anyone who could resonate with this. Find a cozy place while you listen and think about how these things apply to your life or people you may know. The more we can integrate and find new ways for connection to what you may identify as spirituality, the more transcendence and healing of the despair and suffering is possible. So, when I was a child, I was incredibly spiritual without knowing what that was. I had an incredible connection to the ethereal realms, to the unseen, to astral traveling. The sorrow and the loneliness that I experienced as a child catapulted myself out of my body a lot of times. I would look forward to going to sleep at night because I would put my hands down by my side and I could leave my house. And that was such an amazing gift. And I didn't know what it was at the time. Now I believe it's astral traveling. I could feel myself leave my body and I would rise up to the ceiling and leave. These were really beautiful experiences. However, the compound PTSD that I began acquiring year after year after year after so much hardship and not having anyone to help me process what was going on as a highly sensitive individual. And when I say highly sensitive, I always want to clarify that doesn't mean highly emotional. Sensitive, I think, has a stigma of sorts to it, where to be sensitive would be to be too emotional, as it would be a bad thing. But what I mean when I say as a highly sensitive person is that a person that has the capacity to sense more of the spectrum of stimuli. So, all of the senses, all of the ways taking in information and data and stimuli, I feel that I have had a very sensitive receiver operating system, or however you'd want to say it. So, things are more intense for me, and they have been ever since I was little. So, all of that timing, all of that time building up, building up, building up, building up, building up of chaotic, confusing experiences with such a sensitive system, I began to lose the beautiful spiritual experiences I was having because I am human and it became incredibly heavy and very dense and weighed me down, and I could not cope any longer. The spiritual experiences I was having without knowing what they weren't enough to counterbalance the weight that I was going through as a child and a young adult, because it just kept piling on and piling on and piling on. And perhaps if I had known about healthy ways to continue cultivating that spiritual nourishment, if I had known that that was actually a thing that I could implement into my life as I was experiencing all of this piling on of trauma, it would have been a lot different. When I was 16 and 17 and 18, I started to read and be introduced to more spiritual books. I moved to California I began spending a lot of time in the public library in Santa Barbara and reading books on philosophy, learning about quantum physics, learning about mysticism and different types of religions and spirituality. And my narrow minded despair focus began to expand, and my life became brighter also because I was on a different side of the country and experiencing a connection with nature, a stronger connection with nature than I was able to have before. Really diving into my painting process, just allowing so much more of that spiritual nourishment to flood into my life. And so it started to find a balance. I should have gone to therapy after that to help with my childhood trauma, but I didn't address any of it. I was just really going along with the expansion feeling. I'm realizing now that the depth of our roots, the maintenance of those roots, and to know about them and what they consist of and what's feeding them is so relevant to how high we can expand ourselves, like the tree. The deeper the roots, the more expanded, reaching to the sky, to the heavens, to the higher dimensions we can be. But if the roots, even if the roots are super deep, if they're being fed with trauma, then the tree is going to get sick. And even though the roots may be deep, the tree's still going to be sick. So I should have, at that point in my early 20s, when I started to go down again and the CPTSD started to come through my life, I send a lot of love to that girl. I got into an accident at 27 and I fell and became paralyzed. And since then, it has been an immense experience of deepening into myself. I was having incredibly humiliating experiences after having the spinal cord injury. I was on a lot of pain medication. I quickly realized that I was going to die if I stayed on them. And so I weaned myself off. I started learning about herbs and growing my own food and changing my diet, and attempted to get a handle on my brain chemistry, the health and well-being of my nervous system, to help mitigate the nerve pain that I was experiencing, to help myself come into a deeper connection with what my body was going through so that I could lessen the amount of incredibly challenging experiences that I was having, so that I could stay clean and pure. And as I started to go through that process and still reading even more books on the power of the mind, spirituality, the fact that we're more than our body, it has led me over the course of the 15 years since then down a path of discovery into myself and the experience that we're having as humans, and the trials that we go through, and the patterns and the cycles and the contraction and expansion. And I feel devoted when I have a value that's clear to adhere to that. I'm dedicated to being a good person, a loving person, someone who can help others feel empowered. After my grandfather passed away about 7 years ago, that was another break, and my entire life changed after that again. And I just cracked wide open, and I had an existential crisis, and my dark night of the soul period, another one, unfolded, and it was about a year. I would think about things like that God is omnipotent and omnipresent. And however you think of God to be source, creator, spirit, your higher power, your higher self, learning about quantum physics and spirituality and where they meet, and learning about vibration and frequency and the universal laws, I started to sense the connection between myself and the unified fields, everything that there is possibly anywhere. And to have that experience of connection, even if it's a glimpse or a period of meditation, when you become able to experience that connection, the more you can honor that and feel that in your system. It's like pulling the cord of one of those old-fashioned lawnmowers to get it started, or whatever pump kind of a thing. If you pull it once, experience it once, pull it again, how many ever times you have to kick start it, or whatever, however the terminology is, and then it just starts running on its own after a certain point. And after that happens, I don't think it's possible to not feel that connection anymore. And that is the connection that allows for transcendence over suffering. There's that, and there's also the choice that you can make to not experience suffering, even though you may be struggling and there may be challenges. Like, I am very uncomfortable being paralyzed for so long. It's very painful to sit, very, very challenging to not have the capacity to do everything in a day that I want to do. The amount of inspiration and energy that comes through me, and I cannot accomplish the things that I would like to accomplish. And then I see others that have that capacity that are not honoring that beautiful energy and inspiration that's available. And it's just being leaked into other avenues or just wasted away. I made the choice to not suffer and despair anymore. I know how important it is to take care of myself and my nervous system. I know how beneficial a regulated, calm, baseline nervous system is for the healing of my body, for my mindset, to allow myself to have a pleasant experience, to be able to have a nourishing sleep and wake up and feel like I don't want to kill myself, to be living alone and to not feel lonely, to be able to make all of my meals with love and to not just order fast food or delivery ever, because I know that that's just going to be such a detriment to myself. Why would I want to poison myself? I don't want to poison myself with food. I don't want to poison myself with input. I don't have a TV. It's been 20 something years without a TV. I don't watch movies. I don't watch shows. I don't watch Netflix. It's been years and years and years. And it's a choice that I make. What I'm cultivating with my energy is so pure and powerful and potent that I don't want to infiltrate my inner culture with outer culture. That's not healthy. Unless I find something that I am enjoying and then it feels nourishing and it actually feels good to be in the presence of, then I will participate. I know I've gone off on a huge tangent. This is the longest video I think I've made. I just wanted to express some of this and to begin to articulate this notion of how spirituality can help to transcend suffering in your life experience. When you allow yourself to do the grieving and you allow yourself to crack, your heart to break wide open, and the more cracks there are, the more opportunities there are for the light to come through. And that light of spirituality, however you may find it throughout your day. I personally don't wish to add any more trauma to my life, and I'm dedicated to developing efficient ways to continue overcoming and transcending the pains. I love to say we have to make it beautiful, to fall in love with our life, to develop relationship with our experience, our nervous system, our surroundings, how to care so much for ourselves that we choose in every moment from our highest octave. There is, I found, a communication that we can have through spirit, through the ethereal realms, to nature, to the patterns we can see, to the life force in our water, our food. We can observe the field of consciousness through synchronicities, through dreams, through telepathy and love. We can immerse ourselves in that in every moment and find a richness there, and we can feel the godness in everything, that we are never alone. We are not only our physical bodies, and yet we get to experience this life incarnation because of them. Treat your system with tenderness. It's the most loving thing we can do, especially if we've lived lives of trauma. Taking care of ourselves and allowing spirit, however you can find it, through the cracks, I promise, will help you transcend the suffering.